Good morning. Sabah khair. Okay, welcome again to ACC CAMP Certification Preparation Program in partnership with the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS. Yesterday we covered session 2, which speaks about international standards of money laundering compliance, and we'll start today by a quick revision on the topics that we covered yesterday. And I'll start by taking your questions. If anything you would like to ask about, anything was unclear, I'm happy to answer you. Okay. No questions means either very simple, very easy, or very difficult. Both situations will result in no questions. So I hope it's the first one. It was very easy and very simple. And as we agreed, if you don't ask, I will ask.
Yesterday about you said the 5 pillars of where is it?
Of the AML program. We'll speak about it in details next week. Yeah. Any questions?
No, this in I think in the old Basel committee, we have covered about the CDD. But about I think in material they have concentrated more on 2016 paper which they have issued. That one I think we are, because in that they have mentioned about 3 phases, like 3 stages, right?
Yeah.
We have to first control, second line of control, third line of control.
That's right. Yeah, the control perspective. Yeah.
Maybe that 2016 Basel committee paper will be more important.
Yeah, because the latest one. Yeah, that's right. We'll go through that. Not an issue. Sure. Yeah. Any more questions? Shall we do a quick revision myself? Okay. So yesterday we spoke about the international standards on money laundering compliance, and we mentioned that we have different types of international organizations, as we can see. Financial Action Task Force, FATF, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, European Union Directives on Money Laundering, Wolfsburg Principles, Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units, USA Patriot Act, and Office of Foreign Asset Control, known as the OFAC. And we mentioned that the most important one here is the FATF, or the Financial Action Task Force, which is mainly, their main objective is to spread the AML message. We mentioned that it's a policy-making body, so it's an intergovernmental organization. It's a policy-making body. It issues recommendations, and we mentioned that these recommendations are not mandatory, except for the member countries. And what's mandatory for the member countries are only the recommendations, not anything else, not the papers, not the typologists, not anything else except the recommendations. And we mentioned that the FATF was incorporated in 1989 in Paris, and it is having the purpose of the development and promotion of national and international policies to combat money laundering and combat terrorism financing. Then we spoke about their strategic goals and operational goals, and we mentioned in the strategic goals that they are mainly establishing the international standards for combating money laundering and combating terrorism financing, ensuring that there is a global action to combat money laundering and terrorism financing, ensuring that the FATF members, and in this case they are countries, have implemented the entire revised 40 recommendations in an effective and efficient manner, increasing membership through getting more and more countries to be members, enhancing the relationship between the FATF-style regional bodies, FSRBs, offshore group of banking supervisors, OGBS, and non-member countries. Further development of the typologists and the outreach. Then we move to the operational goals. And we mentioned that in the operational goals, they care about organization of work, presidency, steering group, secretariat and budget, and future duration. So in summary, we mentioned that the FATF is mainly for spreading the AML message worldwide. They monitor the implementation of the FATF recommendations among the members through annual self-assessment and through mutual evaluation process. Reviewing money laundering trends and countermeasures through the typologies that they issue, and it becomes like a guideline for countries to combat money laundering and terrorism financing. And we mentioned about the three-step membership criteria, and we mentioned that the first step is the fundamental criteria, where there is a strategic importance of jurisdiction-based on quantitative and qualitative indicators for countries. They look at the size of the GDP, they look at the size of the banking sector, they look at the impact on a global financial system, etc., etc. Then the step two or second step is a technical and other criteria, where they provide written political commitment, of course, to endorse and support the FATF 40 recommendations. So being a member, you must comply with the 40 recommendations and undergo mutual evaluation during the membership process and actively participate in FATF and also the regional bodies of the FATF. Sure.
Regarding these are the steps.
Yep.
But first, as a country, if you want to become a member, you have to be invited, or you have to ask for a membership?
Well, the FATF is always looking for getting more and more member countries. So they reach out to countries and they would encourage more members. So I believe that in most of the cases, the initiative is coming from the FATF itself, because they are reaching through different countries and trying to get more and more members. Of course, that also is a mutual relationship. That means the country also should be willing to become an FATF member and also to comply with the 40 recommendations, to criminalize money laundering, and to comply with the requirements to become a member of the FATF. So I believe in most cases the initiative starting from the FATF, but of course the country has to show that there is an interest or there is a commitment to become a member and to comply with the 40 recommendations. Yeah, that's why I said like their objective is spreading the AML message and also the increasing the membership. So they need to have more and more members, because as we mentioned, the recommendations as such are not binding, but it's binding for the members. So the more members I have, the more countries would be obliged to comply with the 40 recommendations. So I believe this is one of their major objectives. So the more members we have, the better we are and the stronger we are in spreading the AML message. Step 3 is a mutual evaluation and granting of membership, where they launch mutual evaluation process within 3 years of being invited to participate as observer. Membership granted if mutual evaluation is satisfactory.
Regarding the annual self-assessment, does the FATF conduct it for the members, or each member is obliged to conduct it?
The self-assessment is done by each member. So each country will do its self-assessment.
With any representation from the FATF? Any other FATF members would be involved in the assessment? The self-assessment? The
self-assessment, each country should do self-assessment in their own. But after that, there's a mutual evaluation.
Now we are doing that practice, by the way, in the country.
So is it only for members or non-members?
No, members. Members, yes, yeah. It's a must to do both of them, the annual self-assessment and to undergo mutual evaluation.
Actually, what is happening now in global scenario, even though not members, but they are observers like INFATF and others who are all members and observers. Through them, all other countries also are enforced to go through this mutual evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, but it's on a voluntary basis. But for the members of the FATF, it's a must. They cannot. Yeah.
We see the schedule of the FATF.
Yeah.
They will release the schedule.
Uh-huh.
That these countries has to go through mutual evaluation.
But is it a must on these countries?
Because
But what is the forcing power if I'm not a member country?
Because we are members through GCC,
Uh-huh.
here, and
Yeah.
some other FSRBs also same. They are members through their FSRB.
Yeah, but they have to have a membership. That's what I'm saying. Like, you may not be a direct member, but you're a member through GCC. So that puts also liability on you. Like, but I'm talking about a country that's not member at all, not directly or indirectly. There is.
They have to go into their jurisdictions and they have to assess.
They have to have a relation with the FATF, as I said, like part of a regional body, a member, direct or indirectly. But if they don't have anything to do with the FATF, there is no compulsing power, there is no forcing power. But as I said, countries that are in that situation, many of them have done a political commitment because the recommendation are not something bad. It's something that will improve the reputation of the country, and it will show that you are doing a great effort to fight crimes and so on. So many countries, exactly, the name and shame list, yeah. So many countries have shown the political commitment, although that there is no any forcing power on them, that they want to comply with the 40 recommendation because it's something will improve their reputation, it will lower their risk. It's going to be, returning back with a good impact on that country itself. Yeah. So the 40 recommendation, we mentioned that they provide a complete set of countermeasures to combat money laundering and combat terrorism financing, covering 7 main areas, as we discussed yesterday. And I provided you, of course, the diagram where it shows the 7 main areas of the FATF recommendations. And we knew how easy it is, if you remember the shape itself, how easy it is to be able to memorize which recommendation falling under which category. Though not binding, as we mentioned, many countries in the world have made a political commitment to combat money laundering by implementing the 40 recommendations. And again, as we mentioned, this is one of the most important diagrams where it shows the recommendations and the 7 categories, and that's, as we mentioned, is very important. And again, drilling down, we get some set of important recommendations. And we saw yesterday how easy to memorize it if that shape is at the back of our mind. Okay? Then we took some select recommendation. We mentioned that recommendation 1 and 2, they are dealing with the need for countrywide and institution-specific risk assessment. So it's assessing the risk and applying risk-based approach. Process to foster a risk-based approach to AML CTF, and emphasis need for national cooperation and coordination. And that, of course, is within the country itself. Recommendation that countries criminalize money laundering in accordance with the Vienna and Palermo Conventions, which are the international conventions that govern these areas. And many countries have signed actually this conventions, and they are binded by it. We spoke about designated categories of money laundering offenses, and I mentioned that you do not need to memorize that, but you need to know that any crime will result, or any illegal activity will result in money laundering, because we mentioned that any crime will be considered as a predicate crime for money laundering. So you do not need actually to memorize all these crimes. When do financial institutions should undertake the customer due diligence? And we mentioned that this process starts at the establishment stage of the relationship. When you establish the relation with the customer, then you start your CDD process. Of course, you risk rate the customer and you decide on what is the level of due diligence that you're going to apply, whether it's enhanced due diligence, normal customer due diligence, or simplified due diligence. And we mentioned what are the difference between these levels of due diligences. And also, we mentioned that the due diligence is an ongoing process. It starts with the establishment of the relation, and it is an ongoing process until the exit of the relationship itself. And we mentioned also that we should not relate that to opening of account, because we have so many customers who are customers but not necessarily maintaining an account with our financial institution. We gave many examples yesterday, like those who are holding power of attorney, the guardians, guarantors, supplement card, credit card holders, those who rent safe deposit box, those who come at the counter to encash a check, the beneficiary of the checks, those who come to receive an inward transfer over the counter, and many customers who have no accounts yet they are benefiting out of the services of the bank, so they are considered as customers. We mentioned also that the due diligence level is not something which is fixed, it's dynamic, and that's why if your risk matrix is not up to date, you will be subject to a fine. So if there is any reason for you to update the risk matrix, you need to do that immediately. If you didn't get any reason for that, you need to review the risk matrix on a periodic basis. Many banks, they do that on a quarterly basis. So every quarter, they just scan through their risk matrix to make sure that nothing is worth changing or updating. Then, if there is any reason for a customer risk rating to be changing, like for example, as we give an example here, that there is a suspicion of money laundering that you've reported the customer. Actually, when we do the system implementation for banks, I do that as an automatic function. So once you click File STR or Suspect, automatically the system will move up the risk rating of that customer to extra high risk. So if you are applying the E2D2, then automatically the system will monitor each and every transaction from this point forward, that they will throw an alert that there is a transaction happening on this relation because you've reported the customer. In the US, normally, of course, if you filed an STR and the customer have not changed the profile, you do not need to do anything extra. But if there is a new change in profile, you need to send an amendment to that STR to inform the FinCEN or the FIU that there is a new pattern that's happening on that relation itself. But if the same suspicion, there is no change in the profile, the same STR that you sent will be sufficient. You don't need to send any amendment to that STR unless there is anything new that FinCEN needs to be aware of. The financial institution doubting also previously obtained customer information. So in case there is a customer who lied about their information, like about their employment, their income details, about their address, anything that the customer was not honest and they have provided fraudulent information. In this case, of course, I need to increase the risk rating for that customer to extra high risk, and I may want to evaluate the relationship if I want to continue with that relationship or exit the relationship based on providing false information. And this should be reportable as well, because that's an attempted fraud. Providing fraudulent information, that's an attempted fraud for the financial institution itself. So in the customer due diligence, we need to identify the customer and verify the customer identity using reliable information. We mentioned that we need to go to the approved ID from the regulator as per the laws and regulation of the country. We need to be able to identify the UBO or the ultimate beneficial owner, which is again the most challenging part. Realizing that the fact that those customers who are maintaining accounts with the bank are not necessarily those who are controlling these accounts or those who are ultimately benefiting from these accounts. So you have always the concept of the UBO, and as I mentioned yesterday, that criminals who know that they are on the blacklist, they know that they are having bad history, they will never walk to the bank and maintain a relation directly like this, but they will always have a front, a good customer whom the bank would feel comfortable dealing with. Then they will open an account or relation in their name. Then they would be having a control over this relation without the bank knowing. That's why the most challenging part is asking the bank who are really your customers. That's the most challenging part from my point of view. Obtaining information regarding the purpose and intended nature of the business relationship, that's again very important thing. And I want here to give an example out of my own experience. In the customer application, which again, I feel that there is a big confusion in the banking sector regarding customer application and account opening form. In many banks, you go, and I'm talking about UAE only. Most of the banks here, you'll go and find account opening form. And in that account opening form, you'll find all your KYC information. What is the relation between the account and the KYC? Right? The account opening form, in my point of view, it should not be more than half a page. Any information in that account opening form should be related to the account, not to the customer. But there should be something called a customer application form, where you open the file, you open the relation, you start the relation. So anything related to the customer should be in the customer application form. Anything related to the account should be in the account opening form. Mixing them together creates lots of hassles and creates lots of issues later on in the establishment of the relation and in the exit of the relation, because you are confusing. If you look at any core banking system, you'll always see a customer file, CIF, RIM, whether it's customer information file or relationship information management or any name. That means this is the customer file where all the KYC is there. Under that relation, you can have multiple products. You can have a current account, savings account, deposit, personal loan, anything else. Do you really identify the customer or do the KYC based on the product that he takes or based on the relation? It's based on the relation. So I should not relate the customer information to the product. I should do my due diligence. I should do my KYC before even providing the product, regardless of the product. I will not identify the customer and do KYC if I give him current account, but I will ignore that if I give him a savings. No. Am I establishing a relation? Then I need to identify the customer, do my KYC, and do my due diligence. That's why in the customer application form, you should put lots of information for the customer, questions that ask about the customer's name, address, employment, income details, income 1, income 2, income 3, whether he has more than one income, all the KYC information that you would want to know about. Among the very important questions that will be in the customer application form is, why me? Why my bank? Why do you want to start a relation with me? That question is totally different than the question that you should put in the account opening form. Why this product? Why a current account? Why not a saving? Why a minor account, not an investment account? Right. So why me as a bank is one question in the customer application form, and why this product is another question in the account opening form.
So when a bank advertises in the media, it will take half an hour to give you a credit card. The central bank should go to that bank.
Definitely.
And check out the process they do regarding the KYC.
Of course. Or even what's even worse than this, apply for a loan, get a credit card free. So apply for a liability, get another liability for free. Not get a gift card for free, a gift card for 500 or 1,000 dirham or whatever, for free, spend it and that's it. No. You apply for a loan, you get a credit card, another liability for free. Buy one, get one free. Okay, how about the additional liability? Was it also based on the financial capacity of the guy and his commitment? Did that got into consideration? Or you just sold the customer an additional liability where the customer will not be able to satisfy it? And that's why you find customers who are defaulting. Why they are defaulting? Because we have not done our due diligence, and banks normally take the shortcut on just let's get a blank check, or now they put an amount of the whole liability, and if the customer defaults, we go and open a police case, and that's the easiest thing, to put customer behind bars. That's not the right thing. When you are starting the relation, you know ahead that the customer is going to default. That facility should not be given to the customer. Not I know ahead that the customer is defaulting, but because I want to sell and I'm securing myself with a check, then the easiest thing is just to go to any police station and open a check case for him within 2 to 3 days, and that's it. That's what they do. So this is again another issue. So when we start a relation, when we provide a product, there are due diligences in establishment of the relation and also in the providing of the product itself. Like in I saw lots of horrible situations where, for example, I saw a customer opening a minor account, and then what is the purpose of opening the account? Investment. And that minor account, it was in Kuwait. The average turnover on that minor account was 1.5 million Kuwaiti dinar per day. And the guy is six months old. The kid is 6 months old. I said, when he reaches 1 year, what he will do? If he's 6 months old and his average turnover on his minor account, 1.5 million Kuwaiti dinar. You multiply that by 3.5 to reach $2. You multiply that by 12.5 to reach 2 dirhams. A kid who is 6 months old. So at that stage, when I gave you the account opening form and for a minor account, and you wrote that the purpose of opening that account is an investment, as a responsibility of the relationship manager at that time to advise the customer that you are choosing or picking up the wrong product. That product is not designed for that. It's not designed for trading and investment. That's a minor account, right? So the problem is nobody reads. We just have an application form. All our objective is just to fill it. Trust me, I saw things even worse than this. That what is the purpose of opening the account? Drug trading. That's mentioned. Some customers even they take things lightly. And the worst, that approved by, reviewed by, approved by. So the bank is fine with this. You are fine with seeing a customer who's telling you the purpose of opening the account is doing drug trading. Can you imagine? This is a real case I saw from compliance and AML audit.
You meant pharmaceutical.
No. He's making fun of the bank. Some customers, they come and they think that, it's a joke. Like when you ask them where is the source of funds? Oh, I just sold drugs outside. This do happen. Some customers, they come and just they think that, it's a joke or it's a big game, and they don't take things seriously. So where is the awareness of the frontliners at this case? When the customer tells you something like this, what you should do? You should always inform the customer that, well, I don't mind whatever you are saying, I'm going to write that, but that's your responsibility. So you will be held accountable for whatever statement you are providing. So if you really are selling drugs, I don't mind to write that you are selling drugs, but you should take the responsibility on this. But taking things lightly will destroy the whole essence of our due diligence and the whole essence of the banking system itself. People will take things lightly. So again, these forms, guys, are very important. At that stage itself, I do not need to wait for the kid who is 6 months old to do me an average turnover daily of 1.5 million Kuwaiti dinar. At that stage itself, when he opened his guardian or his father, when he opened that kid account, minor account, and he mentioned that I'm using it for trading and investment, you should advise him that this is not the right product. You should advise him to go for a different product. So that's why I said, why me as a bank is an important question. Why this product is another important question. And the places of these questions are in different forms. This one in account opening form, this one in customer application form. So why me as a bank? It was a reason for me filing an STR against one of my customers in UAE here, when I was head of compliance with an AML with Samba Financial Group. And we were doing the soft launch. We were not officially launched at that time. And I got a Pakistani guy who came to the bank and he said, I want to open a relation. I want to open an account. The first question came to my mind, why me? At that time, we were a bank with one branch, with one ATM. We were not connected to the UAE switch. We were not connected to the UAE network. That means a person, a customer, who wants to withdraw 100 dirham, he has to come to that branch, to that ATM in particular, to withdraw this 100 dirham. He cannot do it from any other ATM machines in UAE. The first thing came to my mind, why me? If it's a Saudi guy, I would say yes, Saudi guy who wants to open an account with Samba because maybe he has an account in Saudi Arabia, he knows Samba. But how did this Pakistani guy know that Samba is a bank even? Samba Financial Group. How does he know it's a bank? That's number one. Number two, why me? Why you want to maintain an account with a bank, with one branch, with one ATM? The guy didn't make me wait long. So, of course, I sent my colleague, I mean, intentionally told him to give him certain information and get back to me with the feedback of the customer. So, the first thing is, couple of questions we asked the customer, where does he work, where does he live? The guy lives in Sharjah and he works in Al Qusais. Our branch is in Jumeirah Road, the other side of the city. At that time, back in 2007, to commute from Sharjah to our branch, it may take you 3 to 4 hours. So imagine if you want to withdraw 100 dirham, you will take a trip of 3 to 4 hours to withdraw that 100 dirham from that ATM machine. Does this make sense? For me, it doesn't. For me, it doesn't. The second thing, I told them, once he tells you, just pass this information that in that relation, you have to come particularly to that branch, because that's the only branch, and you have to come particularly to that ATM machine, because you cannot use your card on any other ATM machines across UAE. And tell me if the customer is still interested to continue with the relation or not. Surprisingly, he was still interested to proceed with the relation. So of course, for me, I put him as high risk, right? Couple of days, I mean, of course, I was doing the trips between, Dubai and Central Bank because we wanted to connect to the, the internal blacklist and the credit blacklist and so on. And guess what? Once I got connected to the credit blacklist, I found that the guy has 4 return checks and his current account has been closed and he is not allowed to maintain a current account at that time for 1 year. So why me? The answer came to me. Why me? Because I'm the only bank who's not connected on this blacklist. That's why I'm the only bank who can accept this relation. The other banks have declined the customer. So why me had a big justification in this case.
He did the right due diligence.
He did. That's right. He did the right due diligence. And that's why those 2 days I was like thinking, why me, why me? And I was not sleeping at night. Why would a customer come to open an account with a bank, with one branch, with one ATM? And he's living at the other side of the world. Doesn't make sense. So the purpose of obtaining or establishing this relationship is a very important question. That's why I always teach my colleagues and my staff in the bank that when you get to fill this application form, it's not a systematic thing. It's not just, look at it, it's all filled, that's it. No, you need to look at each and every answer and statement of the customer. Does it make sense? Does it raise any suspicion? So to find selling drugs, to find a customer who's saying I'm opening a minor account to trade, all this kind of things is not acceptable. Yeah, but he shouldn't be maintaining a minor account. You can open a different type, like a trading or an investment account. But a minor account, normally, it's designed that you put a certain amount for that guy, and that's it. But not a 1.5 million Kuwaiti dinar turnover per day. Of course, the guy was, al-Khurafi in Kuwait. So, for him, it's a cup of tea. 1.5 million is nothing for a guy like, he's al-Khurafi's son. So, what do you expect? But that product itself started, of course, throwing an alert. So my AML system started giving an alert because a minor account is not expected to have this kind of, transactions. So, of course, when the relationship manager came back to the client and we advised him, he said, okay, fine, I'll maintain a different type of account, a trading account, but I will keep just a small amount for my son and his minor account, and everything was fine. So as I said, you could avoid lots of issues in the future just at the stage of the establishment of the relationship itself. So by obtaining this information, that's why the due diligence is very important. Many people, they don't understand the difference between due diligence and KYC. Due diligence is not KYC only. KYC is a very minor part of due diligence. Due diligence is far beyond KYC. You go to any bank today, tell them CDD, I say, yeah, you mean KYC. Who said customer due diligence is KYC? It's just KYC. That's, again, one of the major misconceptions and major misunderstanding, that the due diligence is just KYC. It's not like this at all. My working paper in the CAMS audit, which is Advanced AML Certification, it was about due diligence. It was a 34 pages white paper just to educate the professionals that due diligence is something far beyond KYC. It's not just KYC. Due diligence is much more than this. I'll give you more information about due diligence. Of course, it's a topic by itself, but I'll just show you that in due diligence, in a nutshell, if you want to put it in a nutshell, due diligence is the required information for you to take the right decision. If you want to put it just in a couple of words or just a sentence. So what kind of information and inputs that you need to gather to be able to take a proper decision? Apply that apply that, let's say, on a personal level. You need due diligence. When you travel today, aren't you interested to know what are the laws of that country that you're traveling to? That's due diligence. Aren't you interested to know what is the weather like there? What is the currency that they are using? Where are you going to stay? Don't you do a due diligence on the hotels that you are going to stay in? Like the ratings, the customer feedback, the service, how many stars, is it near to the place that you're going to or not? All this is due diligence. For you at the end of the day to have a proper trip, you go and come back safe and sound. But if you fail to do this due diligence, so like let's say you didn't check the laws, you could be in trouble when you land. If you didn't check the weather, you wouldn't take right clothes. You didn't check which is a good airline. You didn't check which is a good hotel. So in this case, the decision that you will take will be all wrong. So the CDD, I would see it as a good governance. It's part of the corporate governance framework. And that's why we always say that the board of directors, if they are not provided with the right information, due diligence information, they will be taking the wrong decisions. Right? And it's not only the right information, it has to be right and timely. I could give you a right information, but because that information is not provided in the right time, your decision will still be wrong. Like let's say today you've bought a share in the stock market, right? The share price is expected to collapse, to fall. Okay? I told you this information after the share price has already collapsed. What will you do? It's the right information, but it's not in the right time. Had I given you this information before the share price would have collapsed, you would have taken the right decision to sell your shares to avoid the loss. You got the point? So, due diligence in merger and acquisition, due diligence in hiring your new employees, due diligence in getting the information and providing a proper decision from the board of directors, from senior management, from department heads, due diligence on onboarding your customers. Can you imagine every part of our life, every part includes due diligence. What I've been talking about, does it have anything to do with KYC only? No, it's far beyond KYC. You got the point? Due diligence today, if you want to acquire a new company, if you want to disconnect a certain business, or disconnect a certain line of business, to provide your products and services in a different jurisdiction, all this will require due diligence. So that's why when anybody tells me due diligence is KYC, I understand that you don't know anything about due diligence. Due diligence is something much higher, much larger than just KYC. And that's why here they didn't say you need to do KYC on the customer, you need to do a due diligence on the customer. Do you really know your customer? Do you really have all the due diligence information about this customer or not? You got the difference? Yeah? So due diligence is not something easy. That's why when we say CDD, oh, it's just KYC. No, it's not KYC. Why did I come up with something called CDD? I would have just called it KYC and that's it. And that's why we said the simplified due diligence is basic KYC. The simplified one is basic KYC. But the EDD is not KYC. Or the CDD is not just KYC. It's much more than this. Yeah? So, conducting ongoing due diligence. Ongoing due diligence, not ongoing KYC. Ongoing due diligence. Much more than just KYC. Right? So that's recommendation number 10 in the FATF. Then recommendation 11 spoke about the record keeping, and we mentioned in US it's 5 years, and we always apply what is more higher. So if you are in a jurisdiction where you have 2 regulatory requirements, one for 5, one for 8, let's say, you'll apply the 8. One for 8 and one for 10, I'll apply the 10. So always I apply the higher to be able to satisfy both regulatory requirements. So in this case, if I'm in the US, it's just 5 years. If I'm in a cross-border, I will apply the toughest or the highest due diligence or record-keeping requirements. Due diligence regarding PEPs, and we mentioned that this is a flashcard, very important, that how to establish a relationship for a politically exposed person is to have an appropriate risk management system to determine whether the customer is a PEP or not. Obtain senior management approval. I mentioned this is prior written senior management approval. It's not an FYI. It's not as soon as I start the relation. No, it's prior to. Take reasonable measures to establish the source of funds. Conduct enhanced ongoing monitoring. Why? Because it's a high-risk customer. Domestic PEPs are now included. Cross-border correspondent banking, another flashcard. We mentioned that we need to gather sufficient information about a respondent institution to understand the nature of their business. And in the exam, I told you, take good care, take proper due diligence to identify whether he's talking about a correspondent banking relationship or just a customer-bank relationship. So a bank can be a customer of another bank if they open an account. But if they open a Vostra and Nostra accounts, that means it is a correspondency relationship. So in the case study, be aware whether he's talking about a correspondency relationship or just a bank being a client of another bank, because the requirements are totally different. Okay? Assess the respondent institution's AML, CTF program and controls. Obtain prior written senior management approval from management before establishing the correspondence relationship. Be satisfied that the respondent bank has verified the identity of and has performed ongoing due diligence with regards to the users of PTAs or payable through accounts, because we mentioned that this is a high risk correspondence relationship, because in this case the customer will have a direct access to the respondent or correspondent bank without routing this information through his bank. So in this case, of course, there is always a KYC issue from that bank taking this instruction, because they are relying on the KYC done or the due diligence done by the other bank who have opened this correspondency account. Shell bank correspondent accounts are not allowed, not permitted, are prohibited. So no correspondence relationship with any shell bank as per the FATF requirements. MVTS, or money or value transfer services, countries should make sure they are licensed or registered subject to relevant AML measures. Agents should also be licensed and or registered, and MVTS provider should maintain a list of their agents. Agents should be involved in MVTS provider AML CTF program and monitor them for compliance. Wire transfers, countries should make sure financial institutions include the required and accurate originator and beneficiary information. We mentioned yesterday, you look at this from both sides. If you are the generating bank, the outward transfer is generated from you, or you are a receiving bank where the inward transfer is ending in your bank. So in this case, if I'm the originator bank, in this case, I need to know my client, the sender. I need to know the beneficiary. I need to know the beneficiary bank. I need to know the beneficiary country, and I need to know the purpose of the transfer. If I am a receiving bank, I need to know the receiver, which is the client who has an account here. I need to know the sender. I need to know the sender bank. I need to know the sender country, and I need to know the purpose of the transfer. Any banks in between, whether it's a single correspondence relationship or a multiple correspondence relationship, any financial institution in the middle should make sure at each and every stage or step of the chain that this information are complete and passing through the chain completely. So no information should be masked or hidden throughout the transfer chain. Whether you are routing it through 1 bank, 2 banks, 3 banks, 10 banks, 100 banks, the information should always flow across the chain. Any bank in the middle has information which is missing, has the right to stop this transfer and a request for information, right? Ensure that the information, as I mentioned, remains with the wire transfer throughout the payment chain. Interpretive note, the financial institution should retain the payment information for all wire transfers over US or Euro 1000, of course, as per the requirements. Reliance on intermediaries. Countries may permit financial institutions to rely on third parties to perform the CDD steps below. Actually here, I strongly like the UK model in this case, where the FCA or the Financial Conduct Authority are also regulating those outsourced firms. So those firms who provide an outsourced CDD and KYC, they are under the regulation of the FCA, which is a very good control, because you don't just form a company and just hire any employees who are not even understanding banking, and they will start providing the CDD as an outsourced basis for any bank. No. These companies, there are certain requirements to register with the FCA, to get themselves licensed and monitored by the FCA. Only then they are allowed to provide this service. In spite of all that, the ultimate responsibility still stays with the financial institution. Not because I'm outsourcing it to a regulated firm, that means I'm outsourcing also the responsibility. No, you are outsourcing the task, the duty, but you cannot outsource the responsibility. So both parties will be liable, but the responsibility for any failure in CDD rests with the financial institution, rests with the bank. To see how many controls they are having in the UK, which is a very good model that I really like. So these outsourced companies or these intermediaries, they can identify the customer and verify the identification information. They can identify the UBO, the ultimate beneficial owner. As you can see, it's not something which is basic. It's something that requires some banking background. So these people providing this service, they should understand banking. I'm sure that if you went to the people in the bank street here, those outsourced firms, and tell them what is UBO, they will think it's a sort of a medicine or something, and they don't know anything about. They do not understand what we are talking about. So how can these people go and do due diligence, and they go and have the application forms filled, and they identify the customers, how they can do that? That's a big concern. Understanding and, as appropriate, obtaining information on the purpose and intended nature of the business relationship. And as a while ago, I told you how this can be important to understand what is the purpose of that relationship. In short form, why me? Why Samba? Why Mashrik? Why NBF or EMBD or any bank? Why me? Why you are coming to me as a customer? Ultimate responsibility stays with the financial institution. This is very important. So in all cases, whether you outsource it or whether you insource it, the responsibility is yours. Okay? So this is again very important. So it is the bank's responsibility to vet, to monitor these outsourced firms, even if they are regulated. It is their responsibility to vet and to audit their work to make sure that they are following the policies and the procedures in accordance with the applicable laws and regulations required for this purpose.
Why do it from the beginning? Because you are already trying to cut down on the things that you are doing. But again, there is another...
No, there could be other reasons. Like for example, in UAE here, the main reason for doing that is for the Emiratization rate. For example, if I hire a very huge team of those who are selling, I will not be able to meet the Emiratization rate in Dubai because, in Dubai, the percentage of the Emiratis, I believe is 3 to 4%. And what is the Emiratization rate now in banks? I believe 13% or even more. So how can you maintain that rate if you have all those people on your payroll? That's the whole purpose of outsourcing it, to maintain the Emiratization rate, not to violate this. So there could be certain reasons for that. But the most important thing is, whom are you outsourcing it to? Are these people qualified to do this task? I had the same issue when I was heading the compliance with Samba. So what I used to do, that after these people go and sell, if the customer wants to receive the ATM and they start to activate the account, they have to come to the bank. In this case, I will personally see the ID, I will verify, I will have one of my bank staff, he will sign that, original ID seen and he signed. So at least I don't rely on these people because you don't know what they are doing. They can even see copies of the IDs. And this is one of the things that I discovered in my audit. I suddenly audited these people and I found that the guy is obtaining a colored copy of the ID. So I said, what is the instruction saying? What's central bank regulation saying? He doesn't know, of course, anything. He said, but this is a colored copy. I said, who told you that the colored copy acts as an original ID? Trust me, I saw disaster. One guy bringing a photocopy of the ID on the mobile. And he's coming fighting at the counter. He wants to process a transaction. He said, I called the call center, and the call center, they said that a copy of the ID on the mobile, it's okay. Can you imagine? These are things I saw it with my own eyes here in this market. So this shows the level of awareness. A person taking a photo of his ID, he's walking with his mobile and saying, well, I have my ID with me. And he wants to transact. Right? There are lots of misconceptions. Like when I tell that we need an attested copy. Attested copy is different than copy of attestation. If I want an attested copy, that means I need the original attestation. Because you cannot provide the copy. Like for example, the original, because for example, if I want the article of incorporation of a company, which is abroad, they will not be able to send me the original articles of association. Fine, because you cannot do this, I need an attested copy of this article. But what do they bring? They bring a copy of the attestation. So a copy of the copy. So what benefit it will do for me? So again, these small things, if you don't know what is the essence, what is the requirement, you are the blind in the dark. And that's what those guys do. They don't understand. They read, instead of a copy of attested copy, they read it copy of attestation. Or they understand it copy of attestation. So they bring you a copy. Here you go. You ask it for a copy of the article of association. I said, no, I asked it for a attested copy. Here is the copy of the attestation. No, I need a attested copy. I need the original attestation on that copy. So these things, again, it's a training, it's an awareness. Are these people qualified to do that? From my point of view, no, they are not. And that's why we see all this. Colored copies of IDs, IDs on mobiles, copies of attestations, and can you demonstrate here that you're having a proper KYC as required? Definitely not. Can you demonstrate that you have done the proper customer identification? No. And these things can trigger fines, can trigger penalties on financial institutions because that's serious. A colored copy of the ID, I can do unlimited photoshopping on that. Change the picture, change the name. I can do whatever I want. If I know that my name is on OFAC, I will change the name on that colored copy of the ID. And you will be dealing with terrorists. You could be dealing with criminals. That's what banks take lightly. In one of the bank, in my compliant AML audit, I got a customer classified on OFAC as SDGT, specially designated global terrorist. Can you imagine? SDGT. In the customer base, and the bank didn't know. I went to the bank, I said, what do you think about this customer? I wanted just to get the feedback. They said, this is one of the best customers that we have. Can you imagine? I said, do you have an access to OFAC? They said, yes. I said, please, can you? And then they got a match. I said, do you know what is between those two brackets, SDGT? They said, no. I said, SDGT stands for Specially Designated Global Terrorist. Your best customer is a specially designated global terrorist. How about the other customers who are not the best? What am I expected to see? And you want to demonstrate that you have a proper due diligence, and you want to demonstrate that you have a proper KYC. Excuse me. This is what we see. Not all banks, but trust me, if you know the percentage, you will get shocked. What I see in the industry and how banks are taking things lightly, they don't understand the essence of it, is really scary. And that's why I always ask the banks, why you think compliance is important? The first thing, we want to please central bank. I said, pleasing central bank is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But that should not be your only objective. The reason for compliance is you want to protect the safety and soundness of your banking system. You want to prevent criminals from penetrating your banking system. You want to protect your reputation. And you will please, of course, central bank, you will be compliant. That's fine. But that's not the ultimate objective. That's not the only objective, because you could be complying by ticking the box. If we look at the AML program as per central bank requirement, for example, let's say the 5 elements that we spoke about: designation of an officer, written policies, procedures, and controls, training and awareness, independent assessment, board of director oversight. I know my shortest AML audit report was 1 line. There is no AML function in the bank. I signed, I put my stamp. I gave it to the customer. The customer was very upset. I knew ahead. And I was attaching to that an envelope. They said, what's in the envelope? I said, this is a check with your fees. This engagement is complimentary. So you don't get to take it to the heart. But this is what you are. There is no AML function in the bank. Why is this? I did an AML audit. I look at the components of the AML program. Designation of a compliance officer. Where is the compliance officer? Here you go. The guy was, a couple of months back, he was a branch manager. He was promoted to AML head. What does he know about AML? Nothing. He doesn't know anything about AML. He just was a branch manager, and then suddenly he became an AML. He's very happy with his business card. He doesn't know AML. Trust me. I asked him technical questions, and the guy is blank. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. Okay, how big is the workforce in the AML department? Only 2. The AML head and 1 assistant. I went to the assistant, which was a senior AML investigator. Good position. Couple of months back, she was secretary. Then she was promoted to senior AML investigator. I went to the lady, I started asking her, she started crying. I said, look, I'm not here to make you cry, but let's take it easy. She said, look, I'll just get you, I cut the story short. I don't know nothing about AML. And my manager, he knows nothing and he's not teaching me. What can I do? This is the AML force. So can I take this as designation of a compliance officer? Designation of a compliance officer, as we will see next week, it has elements. I need to see the qualification of that compliance officer, the background of the compliance officer. Is he certified or not? Is he up to date or not? In the CAM certification, once you become certified, there is a commitment, there is a 60 points requirement every 3 years. That means I don't become CAM certified today and then I disconnect myself from all what's happening and I will always demonstrate myself as CAM certified. You need to be up to date. This field is very dynamic, so you need up to date to be knowing what's going on. If you go like 6 or 7 years back, we didn't have virtual currency. Are you aware about the AML risks in a virtual currency today or no? You know, prepaid cards or stored value cards. That's a new product relatively as compared to previous. We had traveler checks and all this. Are you aware of this new product? Are you aware of the new risks or not? Trade-based money laundering. So you cannot just be certified once and it's good for the whole life. You need to be up to date. So that, of course, that element of the compliance or AML program failed. Let's look at the policies and procedures. I asked for the policies and procedures. I read the policies and procedures, and because I'm in the market, I knew which bank does it belong. It belongs to another bank. So I asked them, can you give me a soft copy? They sent it to me in PDF. I made Control F, and I put the name of that bank, which I know. And guess what? I got a match. A name of a different bank in the AML policy of another bank. Copy paste. So I went to the bank, I said, congratulations. When did you merge with Citibank? It was Citibank. When did you merge with Citibank? They said, did we? I said, I'm asking you. They said, no, we didn't. I said, then what is Citibank doing here? Oh, that's a typo. Typo. Typo to write the name of a different bank. Can you imagine? And that was not only it. They copied a policy of an investment bank, and they are a commercial bank. So the policy talks about asset management, brokerage, and these guys, they are not even licensed to do that. And guess what? Approved by the board of directors. That means nobody's reading. Second thing, training. No training log, no training certificates, no attendance. And who's going to train? The head of AML, who himself needs training badly? That failed. Independent assessment. Based on what I'm telling you, do you think ever there has been any independent assessment? Nothing. And of course, the board of directors, they think everything is in order. Everything is fine. So what would my report be? Except there is no AML function in the bank. Plus, that was the same client where I got this SDGT, Special Designated Global Terrorist. How did I know him? Because I'm the one who added him on OFAC. That customer, he was in my bank. I reported him, and it was added in the OFAC. I went to the guys. How do you think about this customer? Oh, this is our best customer. Special Designated Global Terrorist. How many STRs have you filed? None. Previous year, none. Previous year, none. Since you started the AML function, none. So all your customers are angels, everybody's good. With SDGTs in your bank, what do you want me to write?
But so now, as per the new law, now this trend is changing. Now the new law requires that every biannual report they have to submit, like by annually they have to submit 2 reports. Okay, and so in this report they have to give all this as per the laws and regulations, everything they have to put as per the new law. So this is the new update for all the banks. If they are not submitting, they have to go, they have to face those things.
Yeah. So, the important thing is, as I said, I don't comply to tick the box. I don't comply just to satisfy. You need a policy, okay, here you go. You need a compliance officer, here you go. You need training, here you go. No, I need to see the content of that. I need to see the value of this, not just ticking the box. So that's why compliance is far more than ticking the box. It's not just ticking the box. So so the very important thing is that we need to look at whether, and that's why I said, what is the best evaluation of the AML program? Does it meet its objectives or not? If it meets the objective, that means the AML program is good. If it doesn't, you go and tell me, well, I implemented SaaS, I paid $1.5 million, I hired a guy, I'm paying him, I don't know, $100,000 salary. I don't care about all that. Is the program meeting its objectives? is the program doing what it is supposed to do or not? Effectiveness, yes. So evaluating the results. You're telling me I'm filing STRs. What is the quality of your STR? Are you filing STRs where they are all false positives? What is the percentage of false positives in your STRs? What is the quality of your STR? So evaluating the result is always the best audit tool. Is the system functioning as it was supposed to function or not?
Yes. I have a question. In the exam, they will ask all about this, or they will ask only the line of only the above?
They will ask about the essence of this. So they will get you a case. Yeah, no, not to get an idea. Again, very important. We are not here reading a magazine or an article to have an overall idea. No, we are reading to be examined. There's a huge difference. Reading to be examined, I need to read between the lines. And that's why I spend that time on giving examples, on giving you. It's not to waste your time. It is to get you to understand the basic behind these bullet points. That's a very summarized thing. But behind every one of this, I can make a whole training course. I can make a training course only about identifying the beneficial owner. I can make a training course about customer identification. Each one of those, trust me, I can design a training course around this. So each one of this, you need to understand the essence behind that. What is required from you in customer identification, in verifying the identification, in the customer acceptance, in the identifying the beneficial ownership. And this will come in case studies. So they get you a case, and they will see your understanding. You got the point? And that's why this certificate is really a good one, because it's a practical one. It's not like studying academically in the college. No, here they ask you practically. So they will get you a case study. Case study may involve an investigation case. They will tell you what are the different options, or what is the next step for the MLRO. What should the MLRO do? And you need to pick up what is required. What should the AML officer do? Yeah? So AML program should include, as per the FATF, 4 things: internal policies, procedures, and controls, PPNCs, appropriate compliance management, including designation of compliance officer, ongoing employee training and awareness program, audit function to test the AML CTF program. Okay? Reporting of suspicious transactions and compliance, recommendation number 20. You need to report, of course, you must report to the FIU of that country. In the US, FIU is FinCEN, Financial Crime Enforcement Network. In the exam, you will see these 3 a lot. And that's why I identified those 3. You will find FinCEN, you will find OSTRAC, you will find FinTrack, because they will put that into case studies. So that's why I put this. All those 3, of course, are FIUs. Report all suspicious activity and attempted transactions regardless of the amount. And again, thank you, Ram, because you mentioned about the attempted, even the attempted. I don't need to wait to be a victim of a fraudulent transaction to report. Any attempted fraud, if somebody provided me a forged document, like here in UAE, one guy, he provided a forged visa. None of my colleagues could understand that how could a person forge a visa. They said, is the visa forged? I said, yes. They said, but the sticker looks genuine. I said, yes, the sticker is genuine, but the visa is forged. How? I did my investigation. What happened? The owner of that company, he travels a lot. So what does he do? He leaves assigned immigration forms. For the PRO, if he is not in town, he will fill the information, he will go submit it to the immigration. The PRO put one person on the company's payroll without informing management. HR has no idea about this. So the guy came to our bank, he wants to establish a relation. We did a verification call. And they said, we don't have any employee with that name. But I have a salary certificate from that company saying that this employee is working in a position of so-and-so, drawing so-and-so salary. And I have seen his the original passport with the original sticker of the immigration. So there was some missing part. Right? So that was a fraudulent thing. Do we need to report this? Of course we need to report this. Do I need to be a victim? No, I do not need to wait to be a victim. I already discovered a forged visa and somebody who's providing forged information. This guy does not work there, does not draw this salary. He has nothing to do with this employer. He has forged visa. He's supposed to be sitting here illegally because he's not having a proper residence. and this person is dealing with my bank. Do I need to wait till that guy steals money from my bank? No, I should report this as a fraud attempt. Right? Report when they also are thought to involve tax matters, and as I mentioned yesterday, tax evasion is money laundering, however, tax avoidance is not. And in tax evasion, as I said, the reason for it being fraudulent, money laundering is because of the fraudulent element. You are submitting a fraudulent tax report supported by fraudulent financial statement, supported by fraudulent bank statements. So all the documents has to support whatever figures that you have provided in your tax report. So fraud is an element. That's why when you do tax evasion, you get charged with 3 crimes: fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. But in tax avoidance, well, in this case, I'm delaying paying my tax. I'm trying to optimize my tax, but I'm not doing anything which is fraudulent. There is no element of forgery or fraud in this case, and that's why it's not considered money laundering. Definition of a financial institution, as I said, again, heavily tested in the exam. They will give you which of the following is FI, which of the following is DNFBB. Then you need to differentiate between the non-financial institution and the financial institution. So any institution offering one or more of these services is an FI. And we went through that. And we mentioned here transfer of value. That also includes the hawaladars. They are also financial institution. If they are not regulated, that means they are informal financial institution because they're not part of the formal financial system. Designated DNFBBs, we have casinos, real estate agents, dealers in precious metals and stones, lawyers, notaries and accountants, investment TCSPs, investment advisors. All those are gatekeepers, which are also DNFBBs. And I would add here non-life, non-investment related insurance companies. Any insurance company not offering life or any investment related insurance products is a DNFBB. Transparency of legal person and arrangement. Again, your due diligence should extend not only to the legal person, but also to include those who are behind this legal entity. The owners, the directors, the shareholders holding 25% or more of the shares of that legal entity. Shell banks, the definition of a shell bank, the bank that is incorporated in a jurisdiction where it has no physical presence and is unaffiliated with a regulated banking group. Again, those 2 conditions are a must. So in the exam, if they gave you, which of the following is true about a shell bank? And they gave you 4 options. Okay? A bank that's incorporated in a city or a state where it has physical presence and is not, part of a regulated banking group. A bank that's incorporated in a city or a state where it has no physical presence but is affiliated with a regulated banking group. A bank which is incorporated in a city or a state where it has no physical presence and is not affiliated with a banking group. A bank who is incorporated in a city or a state where it has physical presence and is associated with a banking group. So not having physical presence, not associated or not affiliated with a regulated banking group. That's one of the questions that you could see in the exam. Right? So again, very important. If it is incorporated where it has no physical presence but is affiliated, it's not a shell bank. You got the point? Shell banks are prohibited. No shell banks. In summary, no shell banks. Recommendation 13, no correspondency relationship with a shell bank. Okay? US laws, no relationship with a non-US bank, no non-US shell bank, not directly, not indirectly. That means the US correspondent will not deal with a shell bank, a non-US shell bank, or will not deal with anybody who's dealing with a non-US shell bank. Okay? Regulation and supervision. Financial institutions should be subject to adequate regulation and are effectively implementing the FATF recommendations. Countries should take measures to prevent criminals from owning or managing financial institutions, which is, again, very important because if they own the bank, then what kind of stop funding you will have if they are also owning the bank, so they can easily have access to funds. MSB should be licensed or registered and subject to monitoring and compliance. FIUs, countries should establish financial intelligence units. Sometimes they call it financial investigative unit. It's the same. However, I strongly second financial intelligence unit rather than financial investigative unit. And these units are responsible for receiving, requesting, analyzing, and disseminating. You need to memorize these keywords. These are keywords: receiving, requesting, analyzing, disseminating. So put under each one of them a line. Okay? Related to suspicious transactions and activity and other information related to money laundering and or terrorism financing. Okay? That's a very important flashcard. Mutual legal assistance, MLAT, Mutual Legal Assistance Treaties, Recommendation 37. You should not prohibit or place unreasonable or unduly restrictive conditions on the provision of mutual legal assistance. Ensure that they have clear and efficient processes for the execution of mutual legal assistance requests. Not refuse to execute a request for mutual legal assistance on the grounds that the offense involves fiscal matters on the grounds of secrecy laws. So your secrecy laws should not stand as a showstopper in the way of the mutual legal assistance. Render mutual legal assistance even in the absence of dual criminality. Devise and apply mechanism for determining best venue for prosecution of defendants. Again, flashcards. Okay, then we spoke about the FATF style regional bodies, FSRBs, and we mentioned that we have all these FSRBs. Again, what is required? They will tell you all of the following are FATF, FSRBs except, or choose one or more that applies. Which of the following are FATF, FSRBs? So you should know which is which. Okay, so if I got you something which is not part of this, you should be able to pick that out as a wrong answer. And I gave you more information about the FSRBs. Okay, in your material. Okay, any questions so far?
لازم نحفظ كل FSRB وشو المندات ماله؟
Yeah, I mean, you need to go through them and you need to know who are the FSRBs. Yeah, but you go through them. You don't need to memorize details about each one, but you need to identify, if I gave you a list of organization, which of them is an FSRB. Yeah. Any questions so far? So we made not a quick revision, even a detailed revision on the FATF. Yeah, so FATF, of course, is the most important. You will find lots of questions in the exam about FATF. A lot. Trust me. Okay. Yeah?
But now in the new material which we have, this one, they clearly mentioned about the technical and effectiveness also, about IOs also. In
Yeah.
the immediate outcomes also they mentioned about it.
Yeah.
So we have not covered here about that one. And it will come in the exam?
Anything in the book will come in the exam. That's the rule of thumb, you know. Yeah. 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 No, I mean, I've given you some flashcards. Some flashcards will cover that. But of course, when I go through this, I'm going through the things which are very important that are, you know, yeah, but of course, you cannot rely on my presentation only. You must go back to the book and you must read the book. Not only the book, even the FATF 40 recommendations. You need to read the flashcards. So all these are part of your study requirements. So you should not only rely on this and say, I'm ready. No, the book is... No. If you don't read from the leaflet to the leaflet, trust me, the question, the part that you left, you will find it in front of you of the exam because everything is covered. So whatever you leave, you will find it in front of you. That's a guarantee.
Now the current FATF scenario is, it is now shifted from the only 40 recommendations that the shift has been now.
Yeah.
It is shifted to the technical assistance
Yeah.
and the effectiveness.
That's right.
So now all the banks or anything, it has to be shifted. from
That's
that
right.
manner. So
Updated.
updated.
To avoid ticking the box, as we mentioned, like, you know, just looking at the elements, but you don't look at the quality or the effectiveness of that element. Like, as I gave you an example, designation of compliance officer. Anybody from the street, I put him as a compliance officer, or I need to look at the qualification, at the skills, at the background, at the, you know, independency. There are lots of elements. When I look at the compliance officer, I have a long list of a checklist to see if, yes, at the end of the day, do I have a compliance officer or I don't? I could have the best person, but his reporting line is wrong. I could have a best person, but there is a conflict of interest. He's a chief compliance officer, he's a chief internal auditor. There is a conflict. He's a maker and checker. Right? I could have the best guy, but he's not filing the periodic reports, for example. So lots of things you need to look at when you say like designation of a compliance officer. It's not just, oh, here he is. No, I could spend 3-4 days just evaluating that compliance officer and reporting line, no conflict of interest, independency, his skills, his qualification, his report, his monitoring, his workforce team, his tools, his resources, his systems, his disposal of the alerts, putting the proper scenarios in the system, having an access to the blacklist, having due diligence information, how many times he does, compliance inspection, visits to the branches. Is he covering all his areas? Like for example, if I'm a group compliance officer, am I covering the group or am I covering only my head office? The others are my responsibility. Do I oversee that or no? So all that is part of the compliance officer. You got the point? So is that all covered or not? Not just, oh, well, I have a compliance officer. Here you go. So I totally agree with you, and that's supposed to be done long time back. Than just, saying that, well, we need to make sure that these are existing only. No, to the core of that. Is this really functioning? What is the technical part of it? What do we mean by designation of a compliance officer? Because many banks think that just a compliance officer, get anybody, put him a compliance officer, that's it. Problem solved. No, it's not like that.